Let's start the podcast. Your average fight fan.
All right, what is up, guys? Welcome back, episode 7. I am Juan. This is your average fight fan. All right, we're going to be going over a couple of things here, starting with last night's event, UFC Fight Night in Fight Island, Robert Whittaker versus Darren Till. We had some pretty awesome fights last night, I got to say. I mean, it was a lot better than I expected it. I looked at the fight on paper, and it just didn't seem like a great card. But I guess I got to stop judging UFC. I feel like I say that every episode, and every episode they deliver, so I got to stop doing that. But anyway, yeah, so I'm just going to do the main card here. I know there was a lot of good fights in the prelims, but it was like, I think it was like 15 fights. It's just too much. So I'm just going to go over the main card. We had a pretty good opener. I gotta admit, it was pretty damn good, actually. Started with middleweight bout, which is 185 pounds. Started with, now these names, I'm gonna warn you, these names are gonna come out butchered just left and right, because most of these guys are from Europe, Brazil, Russia, just everywhere but United States. I think there was like maybe 2 Americans on the card, so I'm gonna butcher these names. So bear with me. I apologize to the fighters if I butcher your name, and I most likely will. But yeah. Anyway, with that being said, the first fight on the main card, which was a 7-fight main card, was Khamzat Chimaev. I don't know if that's real. I mean, I don't know if that's how you say it, but I'm just going by what's on the sheet here. Khamzat Chimaev, who came into this fight at 7-0. Quick side note, all of his 7 wins were by stoppage. He has never gone to decision. 4 of those stoppages were by KO or TKO, and 3 of them were submissions. He is currently unranked, but that's because he's fairly new to the UFC. That's just kind of how it goes. You kind of come in, maybe you're, who knows, at the top of the heap in the organization that you're fighting for, but for anybody who comes into the UFC, most likely you're going to be unranked, save for maybe a few big names. But other than that, you're going to probably be unranked. So, I mean, realistically, most guys on this card were unranked, and that's, no knock on the UFC. It's just once you have so many fights back to back to back of all your top guys, everybody's been waiting to fight, and it is what it is. There's only so many fighters on the roster, and once you get into the end of the so-called restart of these events, you're going to get to the, you try to keep the main events and maybe the co-main events with your ranked guys, but once you get towards the, the beginning and the middle of the card, you're going to have some unranked guys. So again, Khamzat Chimaev was unranked. Again, he is 7-0, and he had all stoppages. He's from Stockholm, Sweden. And he won his UFC debut by Darce which was actually 10 days ago. He fought 10 days ago, got the finish. Pretty awesome for a UFC debut. And now he's fighting again. Yeah, he was fighting Reese the Skeletor McKee. His record was 10-2 with 1 draw. All wins by stoppage as well, which is pretty awesome. Both guys have never gone to decision. Also unranked. Reese is from Northern Ireland, and this was his UFC debut, so that's pretty awesome. When you get to the UFC, that's a huge step for any fighter. So congrats on the UFC debut for him. The strange thing for this fight is it was the only fight on the entire card that didn't have Vegas odds. I'm guessing because of the quick turnaround from Chimaev, that might be the reason. But yeah, this was the only fight that didn't have odds, so there was no favorite, no underdog. To start off the fight, Chimaev took Reese down within 14 seconds of the fight starting in the first round. Got the mount, started grounding and pounding. Pretty quick one. Like I said, he got the takedown. 14 seconds in, I want to say maybe a minute or 2 in, the fight was over. The ref had to stop it from ground and pound. It was pretty kind of brutal for a UFC debut for the Skeletor, Reese McGee. Huge congrats to Chimaev. He got a win again, this time via TKO, and he actually set the record for the fastest consecutive win in UFC. So he fought his UFC debut 10 days ago, fought yesterday and won. So he won both of them. That's a record for the history of the UFC, which this would have made his 8th win. So he's still undefeated, 8-0. As for Reese, he got stopped in just over 3 minutes on his UFC debut. He's gonna have to go back to the drawing board, see what he did wrong, learn from it. He's got to understand his style. He's got to understand his strengths and his weaknesses. He's got to practice his strengths, but he's got to work really, really hard on his weaknesses so he can get better, learn from what he did wrong, watch videotape, and just go from there. But yeah, that's a pretty shitty debut for anybody. You get stopped in 3 minutes in the first round. So again, McGee came in 10-2 with 1 draw, so now he's 10-3 with 1 draw. So again, not the greatest debut, but it is what it is. You got to move on. So that we do. Next up was at welterweight, 170 pounds, was Alex Cowboy Oliveira with a 21-8 record. He does have 1 draw and 2 no contests. He's from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. He's also unranked. He was coming off a split decision win, although he's 1-3 in his last 4 fights. So not the greatest, but he, for the most part, does have a pretty decent record. And he's an exciting fighter. I like him. I like watching him fight. I like his attitude. He's exciting. He's always moving around. He likes to he likes to keep it standing. And he's just an exciting fighter. He's got like a Muay Thai style. It's always moving, never stops, always throwing something. He was going against Peter Sobata. Peter is from Germany. He's also unranked. Came in with a record of 17-6 with 1 draw. He was coming off a loss to Leon Edwards via TKO. Leon Edwards is, I want to say, in the top 3 now, maybe top 4 of the welterweight division. He was supposed to fight for the title next, right before Burns got the title shot. The reason he didn't fight for the title is because of COVID. COVID stopped, all the incoming flights to the U.S. and outgoing flights to many countries or from many countries. So that limited his opportunity to fight for the title. And then we know what happened after that. So he's kind of still waiting. But going back to this fight, Vegas had Cowboy Oliveira as the favorite at -170, making Peter Sobata the underdog at +140. I think it was a good fight. I enjoyed it. It was a 3-rounder, went full 15 minutes. I think Alex pretty much dominated the entire fight. He barely got hit, and if he did, it didn't do almost any damage at all. So yeah, he was able to fight at the distance that he wanted to fight the whole time. He was landing at will. He was throwing a front kick to the body with just excellent precision and landing it again and again and again and again and again, just nonstop. He was able to cut Sobata with an elbow early in the second round. Although he did land a low blow and an eye poke in the second round, he was still able to control the fight and get the unanimous decision, making it 2 in a row for the Brazilian Cowboy. So he now moves to 22-8, while Sobata moves to 17-7. So he got another loss. I really don't like when people get eye poked or get kicked in the balls. I really don't like that. I think it's obviously this was not intentional. Clearly, you could tell if you watched it was not intentional. But I really, really don't like that stuff, man. It reminds me of I hate to use this example, but it reminds me of John Jones with the eye pokes and just other fighters where they use low blows to their advantage. Again, this was clearly unintentional. I'm not blaming Cowboy for any reason. It's just bad timing. Sometimes it just sucked that it happened both in the second round. Pretty back to back. But taking that out of the fight, if you remove that small portion of the second round, it was really, really good fight for Cowboy. So, again, congratulations to Alex Oliveira. Great fight, excellent game plan. And for Sobata, man, he couldn't get going. He just really couldn't get going. Yeah, it's gonna be one of those things where you just got to go back and watch the tape. When you go back and you watch that tape and you see what you could have done or what you should have done and what you didn't do, you get the ideas and you can learn from that and set up a new game plan for your next opponent. It's obviously each opponent is different, but you always learn from a loss. Of course, you learn from wins too, but you definitely learn more from a loss than you do from a win. Again, congrats to Oliveira, and for Peter Sabata, just do what you got to do, man. Do your job and just get better. All right. So, moving on. We're going to the light heavyweight bout which is 205 pounds, between Paul Craig, who goes by Bear Jew. Now, I don't know what that means or why he goes by Bear Jew, but that is his nickname. Paul Bear Jew Craig came in with a record of 12-4 with one draw. He is from Scotland. He is also unranked. I don't know if you noticed yet, but this is kind of going to be a theme of this card, unranked fighters. But so going back to Paul Bear Jew Craig, he has not had the best 3 years. He's gotten 3 wins out of his last 8 fights. And he's coming off a draw against Shogun, we'll go over later, is going to be in the co-main event. He just really hasn't had a good 3 years. He's had mediocre at best. He was fighting. Now this is a winner right here. The name that I'm about to say, I have no clue if I'm saying this right, and I'm going to probably guess that I'm saying it wrong. But his name was Gadzimurad Antigulov with a record of 20-6. He's from Dagestan, Russia. Again, unranked. He's coming off back-to-back losses. But if you know anything about anything grappling related or anything MMA related, you know that Dagestan puts out just the beasts of all the beasts when it comes to grappling. They're like excellent wrestlers. Most of them train in Sambo. Man, they're just beasts. So just because of how Dagestan puts people out, he's a grappler, and he's gotten 15 wins by submission. All right. Paul Bear Jew Craig was actually the favorite here at minus 135, making Antigulov the underdog at plus 105. Now, keep in mind, again, guys from Dagestan, they are nasty, nasty grapplers. This guy's got 15 wins by submission. So this is why this fight was so exciting and intriguing. The fight ended pretty quickly. Antigulov, as he should, most guys do, from Dagestan, he got the immediate takedown, moving into Paul Craig's guard, which is not an unknown territory for Craig. He's been known to submit guys off his back before. This time it was Antigulov who was raining down strikes, with Paul blocking some of them, of course, and taking some. You can't block them all. It's not easy to block all shots, especially when they're coming, flying down and you're on the bottom with your back against the canvas. But to Paul's credit, he withstood the onslaught and was able to get his legs high enough on Antigulov's body to sneak in a triangle. He was not successful. He wasn't successfully positioned to complete the triangle, but he didn't stop trying, all the while getting punched in the face, getting punched in the body. All this time, he was able to kind of adjust his position little by little, and finally he actually did sink in and get the victory by triangle choke in round 1. Again, going back to Antigulov, 15 wins by submission from Dagestan. Crazy good grappler. And Paul Craig submitted him in the first round with a triangle. So that is a huge, huge win, considering, like I said, his last 3 years were not good, not easy going. He just had a shitty last 8 fights. So he seems like he's in much better shape now and is looking good. Obviously, he's going to be fresh to fight again soon. So let's see where he goes from here. Again, big congrats to Bear Jew, who now moves to 13-4, handing Antigulov his 7th loss. I really want to know why he calls himself Bear Jew. Congratulations to Bear Jew, Paul Craig. He seems like a really good dude based off his post-fight interview. So, yeah, I hope he gets another fight soon and continues the win streak. So, again, congrats to Paul Craig. All right, moving on. After that, we had Carla, the Cookie Monster Esparza, taking on Marina Rodriguez. This was a strawweight bout at 115 pounds. Carla Esparza came in with a record of 16-6. She's 32 years old. She's a former strawweight champion. She fights out of California, and she's ranked at number 7. She's had a pretty good last few fights. She's coming off 3 straight wins, beating girls like Michelle Waterson and Alexa Grasso. If you know anything about those 2 girls, they are pretty tough, especially Michelle. They call her the Karate Hottie for a reason. She is very skilled in stand-up Muay Thai and karate, and she's a good fighter, and she's very cute. That's why she got the nickname. But Yeah, if you know anything about these two girls, they're very good and they're very skilled. Carla beat them both, so kind of gives you an idea of how good she is. She's usually the shorter fighter against anyone that she fights because she's 5'1", but she uses her good boxing and very good wrestling to her advantage most of the time. She's very durable. She's difficult to beat. Very strong regardless of her small stature, and she hardly ever smiles, which is funny. She never smiles. I don't know why she never smiles, but she's always like just super serious. Unless she wins. If she wins, then yeah, obviously she's smiling. But for the most part, she's always like mean mugging people. But yeah, she likes to mix it up. Again, like I said, her boxing and wrestling are very good, and she keeps her opponents guessing with that. You know, she'll taunt her opponents because she's, like I said, good at wrestling. So she might level change and do that type of thing to keep her opponents guessing. She was fighting Marina Rodriguez, who's undefeated, or at least was undefeated. Came in with a 12-0 record with 2 draws. She's Brazilian. She's 33 years old, ranked number 9. She had 6 finishes, 5 by TKO or knockout, and 1 by submission. She's more of obviously a stand-up fighter, Muay Thai style, but she's fought some good girls. She fought Cynthia Calvillo, who just won a main event against Jessica Ai recently. That fight was actually a draw. She also fought Tisha Torres, Jessica Aguilar, and Randa Marcos, who also, that fight was also a draw. So that's where her 2 draws come in. But again, she's 5'7". She had a 6-inch height advantage, as well as a 2-inch reach advantage. So, you know, that maybe that's why they gave Vegas had Marina as the favorite at -185 and having Carla the underdog at +155. But if I'm going to be honest, man, they had it wrong. This was a good back and forth brawl with 2 girls not holding anything back. I mean, it ultimately ended in a split decision. You know, but when they were announcing the scores, I got to be honest, man, neither one of these girls looked like they were confident in what the judges were going to say, which is very normal when it's a split decision, because as soon as the announcer says, judge, whatever, so-and-so has it, whatever for so-and-so, then you automatically know it's going to be a split decision, because usually it's, you know, all 3 judges had it 30-27 or whatever, you know what I mean? Or 2 judges had it this and one, you know, so as soon as they say this judge or judge number 1 had it for so-and-so, then you know the very next one is going to say, okay, next judge number 2 had it for so-and-so, and then the third judge is going to be the defining judge. So it's the problem is that at that moment when they say judge number 1 has it for so-and-so, then you really have no idea what the scores are going to look like. You just know that it's going to be a split decision. You hope it's your name that gets called out, but when it's left in the hands of 3 people who, for the most part, do a decent job, sometimes, though, you have guys or girls who just have absolutely no clue what they're watching, what they're scoring, what they're doing. They have no clue. They're just, you know, going off what they've known in the past, which is boxing. So they're scoring a boxing match, even though this is clearly not what this is. Then you have those times where it's just, you just get a disastrous result. I mean, there's so many of those, especially in the last few years. There's been so many bad ones. But luckily, this was a close fight. So I would have been okay with either girl getting the nod. However, I think that due to the multiple takedowns, I think she had maybe 5 of those, 5 takedowns, they gave it to the Cookie Monster. It was her name that was announced as the winner. However, not so lucky for Marina. She no longer has a 0 in the loss column. So she moves to 12-1. However, she did some damage, though. She, you know, while she was down on her back off those takedowns, she was able to do some damage. She even cut Carla with elbows off her back. So she in no way got dominated while being taken down. She was working. She was getting points. She was actually doing really well. But I just think that the repeated takedowns is what helped Carla get the nod. And I think in the 3rd round, Esparza was a smarter fighter, controlling the round. She got the strikes. She was threatening the takedown. And in my opinion, I think that's what won her the round and ultimately won her the decision, albeit, like I said, split decision. But nonetheless, big win. You know, that's a big win, not only because she beat an undefeated fighter, but also because she moves one step closer to her goal, which is to get back into title contention at 115 pounds. So, if you think about it logically, this is a huge win for her. Huge win. You know, regardless of who you beat, in this case, an undefeated fighter, the ultimate goal is to get back into title contention. Now, she came in ranked, what did I say, number 7? You know, she's not too far off. You know, this is a good step for her. So again, congratulations to Carla, the Cookie Monster. That's a funny name. Going back to Marina, she's a really skilled fighter. It didn't go her way this time. So she'll be back. She'll definitely be better. She'll be stronger. And she will most likely work on takedown defense, All right. So anyway, congrats to Carla on the big win. Okay, moving on to a heavyweight division. We had Fabricio Werdum versus Alexander Gustafsson. Fabricio is 42 years old, standing 6'4". He is the former heavyweight champion. He came in with a record of 23-9 with 1 draw. He had 6 KOs or TKOs, and he also had 11 wins by submission. As of yesterday, he was ranked number 14, but that doesn't really explain or summarize his career. He's one of the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners ever in any weight class, regardless of who you're talking about. Pound for pound, he's one of the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners ever. This guy's got 10 Jiu-Jitsu gold medals. 4 of those were for Pan American Games, which is North, South, and Central America. He also had 6 world championships. This guy is just a beast at grappling. Unluckily for him, though, he was coming off back-to-back losses, and he just, he's like I said, he's 42. He's at the very ass end of his career. In his last 7 fights, he had 4 losses. So this has kind of been a trend, this card, where people have just not had great, last couple years. He was on suspension, though. He was on suspension for 2 years for popping for, I don't know what it was. It was some sort of tainted supplement. So whatever it was, whether it was steroids or whatever, I don't know what it was, but he was on suspension. So, clearly his last few years were not great, but his last loss was just a couple of months ago. He fought on May 9th and wasn't great. So he was looking to get back in the win column here against Alex. And, he was going to be the bigger, or he was, I should say, the bigger fighter. He's a natural 240-plus pound heavyweight. And, although he did, like I said, he did have 9 losses, this guy is an absolute legend of this sport. This guy's had an amazing career. He's been fighting professionally in Pride, Strikeforce, the UFC. I mean, this guy's been super successful. He's beaten so many big names. I'm going to name just a few here. And this is only a few. I mean, this guy's, like I said, he's got 23 victories. He's got over 30 fights. He's beaten Travis Brown twice. He beat Cain Velasquez, who some consider to be the best heavyweight of all time. He beat Mark Hunt. He beat Big Nog, which is Little Nog's older brother. He beat Royal Nelson. He beat Fedor Emelianenko, who people think is the greatest pound-for-pound fighter of all time, not just heavyweight. Any weight, people think that Fedor is the greatest of all time. He beat Brandon Vera. He beat Gabriel Gonzaga twice. He also beat Fedor's brother, Alexander. And he beat Alistair Overeem. Those are just a few names that he's taken out. Whether it's by submission, by knockout, or by decision, he's beaten all of these guys. Now, you're talking about a guy who beat, again, Cain Velasquez and Fedor. 2 of the best heavyweights of all time, and one considered by many as the greatest pound-for-pound fighter ever. And Fabricio's beaten them both. So you're talking about an absolute just superstar legend of this sport. Now, again, he is 42, though. Okay, so keep that in mind. And like I said before, he was fighting Alexander Gustafsson. They call him the Mauler. The Mauler stands 6'5". He's 33 years old, from Sweden, obviously much younger than Fabricio. He came in with a record of 18-6, 11 knockouts or TKO, 3 submissions. He was, he's naturally a light heavyweight. You know what I mean? He's not your, 260-pound natural. No, he was moving up to heavyweight. You know what I mean? And even though he was moving up to heavyweight, he still had the advantage of height and reach. He was an inch taller and 2 inches of reach to his advantage. Now, I don't really understand how this is possible, and I don't get it, but they have Alexander Gustafsson, who's coming off of retirement after back-to-back losses. They have him ranked at number 7. Now, I don't know if that's his heavyweight ranking or his light heavyweight ranking. It did not specify. I looked it up on many websites, including the UFC. It did not specify, but if usually when it's another weight class, they will write what weight class he's ranked at. This one, they did not. When they usually do not write his ranking, it's because he's ranked in the weight class that he's currently fighting. Now, again, I say to you, he was on back-to-back losses, and this is his heavyweight debut. He's never fought at this weight class. How is he ranked at number 7? That to me makes zero sense. But as I've said in the past, the UFC have some crazy, crazy history with people fighting champions after, getting a title shot after losing, people getting ranked in weight classes that they don't fight in, people moving up a weight class and getting a title shot. There's many different crazy things that the UFC have done. This is just one of those. It's not the craziest. I mean, it's just a ranking, but it is what it is. They ranked him at number 7. I'm just going to talk about a little bit about his career. He's had a great career. As a light heavyweight, this guy fought for multiple titles. He's beaten some of the greats. He fought John Jones twice. He fought DC twice. He fought Anthony Rumble Johnson. He beat Glover Teixeira. He beat Jan Blachowicz, who is in line probably for the next title shot at light heavyweight. He beat Jimmy Manoa. He beat Shogun Rua. He beat Thiago Silva, who just fought John Jones for the title very recently, and who many think he won that fight. The decision didn't go his way, but many think that he won that fight. I'd rather not speculate because that's not what I'm talking about in this particular moment, but he's beaten some really, really good guys, and he's had a great career, but now he's moving up. Like I said, back-to-back losses will make you make a decision. He retired completely. He was out. He was done at 33 years old. I guess the fire just wasn't there anymore, but sometimes when you retire, you realize that it is still there. You miss it, and that fire just lights just crazy fire under your ass again. And that's what he did, except he didn't want to drop the weight anymore, so he just said, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to go to heavyweight, and I'll fight whoever you want to give me. They said, how about Fabricio Verdum? He said, okay. He feels like his style matches well against Verdum, and he's a striker with excellent wrestling. This guy's 6'5", and he's got excellent wrestling. He mixes in takedowns when he sees the opportunity. He's very difficult to take down. Very difficult. He's got an 85% takedown defense. Very, very high-level guy. Anybody who's ever trained with him or talks about him has zero bad things to say about him. This guy is loved by just about everybody in the MMA community. I'm a big fan of his. But, so again, he's moving up. He was actually favored in this fight. He was minus 330 favorite, where Verdum was the plus 270 underdog. Vegas is just going off what they usually go off. Records, opponents, history, previous fights, all that stuff. Styles, everything. Styles make fights a lot of times. But this was another one that ended pretty quickly. If you asked me before the fight, if it's going to end in the first round, who do you think is going to win and how's it going to end? I probably would have said if Gustafsson wins, it would most likely be by knockout or TKO. But if Verdum wins, it will almost certainly be by submission. Well, one of those two things did happen. And before I tell you how it ended, as if you don't already know, let's be honest, if you're listening and you're still here, it's safe to say that you like MMA and you would have already known the result by now. But I just want to reiterate that Fabricio is now 42 years old. He has no reason to be fighting. He does not need the money. He's got many ways outside of the UFC and outside of fighting where he does make money. Even having been an announcer for the UFC's En Español division. His mom is from Spain. He speaks perfect Spanish. He doesn't need the money. He's just doing it for sheer competition. And the same goes for Alex. Alex, although he is much younger, he's 33, they really don't need the fight. But yeah, like I said, it did end quickly. It was in the first round, and it was very, very, very good win for Verdum. He was able to catch a kick thrown by Alex and take him down. While Gustafsson was landing big, heavy hammer fists, it just wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. Verdum ended up catching Alex with a very good armbar. Alex fought it for a minute, but ultimately just the super, super high level BJJ of Fabricio was just too much for Alex. And he was forced to tap, It kind of sucks, but it's also awesome in the same way, because like I said, I like both these guys. This gave Verdum his 24th victory, but it also spoiled Alex's return and his debut at heavyweight. So like I said, it sucks because I'm a big fan of Alex, but it's also awesome because I'm a big fan of Verdum. He's 185 years old. He shouldn't be fighting anymore, but at the same time, he's still doing it, man. He's still doing it. He's still doing it at a high level. He just beat one of the best light heavyweights of all time, in my opinion. And, he did it very convincingly. First round, I don't know, maybe less than 3 minutes in. You know what I mean? That's a huge win. That's a huge win. 42 years old, huge win for him. Actually, it was pretty cool because later at the post-fight press conference, knowing that this was his last fight on the UFC contract, because he had explained that before going into this fight, that this was his last fight on the contract. He he respectfully called out Fedor, which is it's cool because he said he respects Fedor a lot, and it would be awesome to give him another opportunity. He said, let's do it for the 10th anniversary. They fought back in 2010, so 2020 would be the 10th anniversary. And like I've mentioned before, Verdum actually beat Fedor by submission. When he beat Fedor by submission in 2010, he ended up winning the Upset of the Year award. You know what I mean? Like that's some crazy madness. People knew that he was awesome at jiu-jitsu, but I don't think anybody thought that he was going to win a fight against Fedor, especially not in 2010. 2010, Fedor was still Fedor. You go in there and you beat him in a heavyweight tournament. Gave him the Upset of the Year award, which is pretty awesome. I don't really know if this fight will ever come into fruition, but I would definitely watch. I would definitely watch that fight. So we'll see if it happens or not. I hope it does. If it does, it would most likely be in Bellator because I'm pretty sure Fedor is still signed to Bellator. He fought his last fight in Bellator, so if it did happen, it would have to be in Bellator. So Verdum would have to sign with Bellator, which won't be anything difficult. Bellator signs anybody who leaves the UFC, and they usually make more money there. So let's see what happens. Either way, congrats to Fabricio Verdum for the huge win against Alex. And for Alex, it's kind of just back to the drawing board. Like I said before, he needs to figure out his next move. He's got to do some searching, man. He's really got to do some searching. Is he going to fight again? If he does fight, is he going to fight at heavyweight? Is he going to fight at light heavyweight? Is he going to retire? What is he going to do? He did say he wanted to keep fighting. That doesn't mean anything, though. A lot of guys say stuff in the heat of the moment and then end up changing their mind. So we'll see what happens here. Either way, I hope that he makes the right decision. And I just, I want to see him fight again. I do. Like I said, I'm a big fan of his. I really like him. I hope he fights again. But we will see. We'll see what happens. Okay, moving on to the co-main. The co-main event, Mauricio Shogun Rua versus Little Nog, also known as Antonio Minotauro Nogueira. This was a light heavyweight bout, just like the last two. This would be their third fight. They fought twice before. They fought once in 2005. That was in Pride. Then they fought again in 2015. That was in the UFC. Both fights ended in decision, and both fights went to Shogun Rua. So he's 2-0 against Little Nog. So Shogun is 6'1". He's 38 years old. He's the former light heavyweight champion. His record, he was coming in with a 26-11 record. He had one draw. Now, out of those 26 wins, 21 of them were either by knockout or TKO. That's pretty damn impressive. 21 knockouts out of 26 victories. That's big. So, obviously, another legend, Fought everybody, beaten tons of guys, huge names. I mean, I just told you he beat Little Nog twice. He beat Brandon Vera. He beat Forrest Griffin. He beat Lyoto Machida. He beat Chuck Liddell. He beat Mark Coleman. He beat Alistair Overeem twice. He beat Rampage Jackson. And he also beat Ricardo Arjona. So he's fought some super, super big names in the sport. And he's beat a lot of them. But, after coming off 2 straight losses, he's 4-1-1 in his last fight. So he's 4 victories, 1 loss, and 1 draw in his last 6 fights. As I mentioned before, his draw was against Paul Craig. He's ranked number 15. So obviously there was no implications for this fight because Little Nog is unranked. So there's no title run. There's no, I want to get back up there. I want to be in the top 10. I want to be top 5. That's just not what it is anymore for him. It's more of like, I still want to fight. I still feel that I'm competitive. I still feel that I can win fights. So at this point of his career, at 38, it's more of like I said, I still want to fight, Now, again, I don't know if this is for money. I don't know if this is for legacy. I don't know what this is for, but he's ranked number 15. So he's still in the top 15 in the world, in the biggest organization, at 38 years old. If I had to give him a style, he's mostly a stand-up fighter. You know, he loves Muay Thai. He's trained in Muay Thai his whole life. He's a good boxer. He throws kicks. And he uses BJJ as a backup if it's needed. You know, he's good at BJJ as well. Like I said, he was going up against Antonio Minotauro Nogueira, also known as Little Nog. I think he's 187 years old, something like that. No, I'm just kidding. He's 44. He came in with a record of 23-9, 8 knockouts, 6 by submission. Like I told you, he was unranked. He is Brazilian. If you don't know the Nogueira brothers, you don't know MMA. So look them up if you don't know them. They're legends. Him and his brother, both legends. Fought everybody. Pride, UFC. I mean, you're going back to early 90s when when the MMA was kind of the unknown. It was, people called it chicken fights and cage fighting, and you're a cage fighter? You fight with animals? You know? He was already in there. Early 90s, fighting in Pride and all that stuff, you know? So, but yeah, he's beating some good dudes, man. He's beating some high-level guys. Alistair Overeem beat him twice. Dan Henderson, he beat Tito Ortiz. Not many guys can say that. He beat Rashad Evans, you know, among others. He's beaten some top guys. Again, if I had to give him a style, I would call him a mixed martial artist because, yes, he does favor boxing, but he favors boxing because he was a gold medalist in boxing. You know, he was the gold medal boxing champion in South America, but he also trains at BJJ. This guy's a 3rd-degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now, if you know anything about Jiu-Jitsu, then you know that getting a black belt is hard. It's very hard. It takes a long time. Getting a 3rd-degree black belt, that's one of the craziest, most difficult things you could ever do. 3rd-degree black belt. That's insane. With all that being said, again, he's 44, okay? Vegas had him as the underdog. He was at plus 160. If I had to guess, it's the age. It's his opponent. This is his last fight. You know, they had Shogun as a favorite at minus 200. Yeah, let me remind you, this was Little Nog's final fight as a professional. He said before the fight that he was retiring no matter the result, and he did. He stuck to his word. He did. Once the fight was over, they asked him, and he said, yep, this is my final fight. This was it. I'm retiring. So this was another 3-round back-and-forth brawl, so much so that it was actually a split decision, you know, just like Carla and Marina. So on paper, this will go down as the 3rd victory for Shogun in the infamous trilogy that went to a decision in all 3 fights. But, you know, there were good moments for both guys. All 3 rounds had good moments for both fighters. Ultimately, in the eyes of the judges, though, Little Nog he didn't do enough. You know, he didn't do enough to get the victory. And it kind of sucks because usually you want to go out on a win. You know, you're retiring. This is your retirement match. You want to go out on a win, but life happens, you know, and sometimes you just don't get what you want. But after the fight, he explained that he's been fighting for a really long time and he probably should have retired earlier, but he just loved the sport so much that it was really difficult to let go. But, like I said, he's just an absolute legend. He deserves to retire when he's ready, even if it was at 44. You know, I think he should have retired earlier, but who am I, you know? So, again, congrats on an incredible career. And if he's not already in the UFC Hall of Fame, I'm not 100% sure if he is or not, but if he's not, he will definitely be a Hall of Famer for sure. 100%. And like I mentioned before about these 3 Brazilians being old enough to fight, not to fight anymore, I meant it. I think Shogun should retire as well, even though I know he won't. He's only 38 in his eyes. You know, he probably will do the same as the other 2 guys. He'll retire in his 40s. And honestly, I can't take anything away from him. He looked good, you know. He was fighting a guy that's 44, clearly, but he looked good. You know, he looked good last night. So it is what it is. I'm sure he will continue to fight. But we'll see. We'll see what he does. We'll see what happens. We'll see what his next move is. But yeah, so Shogun moved to 27 wins while Little Nog retires with a professional record of 23-10. So good luck to both fighters, whatever they decide to do in their respective careers and their futures, whatever that holds for them. Good luck to both of them. We'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, moving on to the main event of the night. You got Robert Bobby Knuckles I love that nickname. Bobby Knuckles. Robert Whittaker against Darren the Gorilla Till. I just want to start off by saying Bobby Knuckles, it's so funny, but that's actually not his commonly used nickname. They usually call him the Reaper. That's actually what it says. If you look at his UFC profile, it says Robert the Reaper Knuckles. Excuse me. It says Robert the Reaper Whittaker. And then if you continue to keep searching, you'll see that it also says Bobby Knuckles. But I just love that nickname. It's so funny. But yeah, so Robert Whittaker is 29. He came in with a record of 20-5, 9 knockouts or TKO, 5 submissions. He's ranked number 1 in the world. He's from New Zealand, but he fights out of Australia. I don't remember when he moved to Australia, but he discussed it a while back when he was fighting Adesanya. They went back and forth about one being from New Zealand and leaving, blah, 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 this and that. I don't know. I don't know what the big deal is, but he did leave New Zealand for Australia. So he fights out of Australia. Prior to losing to Adesanya, though, he did go on a 9-fight win streak. That's pretty crazy. 9-fight win streak. And then again, like I said, he lost his middleweight title to Adesanya. So he's trying to get back into title contention, with the win here. He's one of those guys that's just really, really difficult to take down. Again, like I said before about Alex, 85%. Well, Bobby Knuckles has 84% takedown defense. And he's got a really good takedown accuracy. He's got 60% of takedowns. That means he lands 60% of his takedown attempts. So that's pretty high level. And when I say pretty, I mean that's really high level. But Darren Till, the Gorilla, he's 27, from Liverpool, England. He came into this fight with an 18-2 record with 1 draw. He is the former title challenger at 170 pounds. He lost that fight to Tyron Woodley. They had him ranked at number 5 prior to the fight, and he was coming off 2 losses in his last 3 fights. But before that, he was unbeaten. Like I said, he was 18-2. He had an 18-fight unbeaten streak prior to that. So, he beat some good guys too. He beat Donald Cerrone. He beat Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. He beat Kelvin Gastelum. He's beat some good guys. He hasn't been in the UFC very, very long, but he's been in the UFC long enough to make a huge impression, take out some very high-level guys, and, get a title shot. And then move up to 185 pounds and fight for the number 1 contender spot. So think about it this way. If he won last night, Darren would have leapfrogged Bobby Knuckles for the shot at the title. He's ranked number 5. Robert Whittaker's ranked number 1. If you beat the number 1 contender, then you're automatically that number 1 contender, right? So he would have just leapfrogged them automatically. And I'm not saying he would have fought for the title next, but he would have taken the spot that Bobby Knuckles worked for at number 1 contention to fight for the title at some point in the very near future. And of course, I'm talking about the winner of the fight would most likely, I'm not saying they definitely will, I'm saying they most likely will fight the winner of Adesanya and Costa, who are scheduled to fight on September 19th for the middleweight title. Now, if you know anything about Costa, this guy is a monster. He looks like a Greek god. Look at his physique. Look at the way he fights. The guy never backs up, never takes a step backward, always coming forward, always throwing crazy strikes, kicks, knees, elbows, punches, hooks, right crosses, left crosses. This guy is a monster. Undefeated. Adesanya, undefeated. This is the first time since, I don't even remember. I honestly don't remember. Like UFC 40 or something, that there's 2 undefeated guys fighting for the middleweight title. So this is going to be a big fight. Scheduled for September 19th. I'm pumped for that fight. I really want to see that. I want to see what Adesanya can do against Costa, and I really want to see what Costa can do against Adesanya, because they both have completely different styles. Adesanya is more of a counter striker, where Costa, like I said, just moves forward and steamrolls people. But yeah, again, I'm off topic. I don't know why, because I'm pumped for that fight. But anyway, going back to Darren Till, his style is definitely 100% a stand-up fighter. He grew up training in Muay Thai. Again, he does have a background in BJJ. He's a purple belt, but Whittaker's a brown belt. So if I had to give the advantage to one of these guys, it would definitely be Bobby Knuckles. His ground game is a lot better. He's a high-level wrestler, brown belt in jiu-jitsu. If I'm not mistaken, he also trained in judo too. I might be mistaken about that, but he's definitely the better grappler in this fight. This one also went to decision. Yeah, I think both fighters did what they thought was best. Although I have to say, Till tends to feint too much sometimes, and he just doesn't throw enough. Sometimes his output just isn't enough to win rounds. But here he came out pretty fast in the first round. He was even chasing Robert around the cage for a little bit, even though Robert Whittaker landed a couple jabs that stopped him in his tracks. But Darren Till landed a vicious elbow, like maybe 2 minutes into the first round, put Whittaker down on the canvas. It was brutal. I was like, all right, cool, okay, all right. Till's back. He wants to show the world that he's ready. Okay, he's at 185. He's got a win in this division already. He's fighting the number one guy. Okay, all right, cool, all right. After getting that knockdown, I was like, okay, cool, all right. He storms Whittaker, trying to end it early. But, yeah, that didn't last very long, though. Robert Whittaker was, again, the smarter guy in there. He was able to get up, defend himself. If I'm being honest, I think that Robert Whittaker actually had the better round, despite the knockdown. But, of course, when you get put down on the canvas, when you get knocked down, almost always the round is going to go to the fighter who landed that strike. So I gave the first round to Till. And I think everybody else did too, However, after that, though, man, it was really hard to score any other fight for Till. I'm sorry, man, but it just was. I know the scores were 48-47 across the board, which means all three judges gave 2 rounds to Till. I thought it was difficult, but if I have to pick one of the rounds that they gave to Till, obviously the first. So besides the first, I would assume that everybody gave him the 4th round, and that was the reason why he got 48-47. It was probably where he looked the best outside of the first round. But, he had some good moments in all 5 rounds. Even like in the 5th round in the beginning, he came out very similar to the first round. Came out guns blazing, running at him, chasing him, landing some good shots early. He hurt Bobby Knuckles. But like I said before, just like in the first round, those moments were not enough to trump what Whittaker was doing on a consistent basis. He was landing leg kicks with precision, and pretty often, I think that's one of the things that Whittaker did very well. We actually found out later that Till injured his knee due to all those kicks. So that sucks for him, but that tells you how effective those kicks are. Another thing I thought that both fighters did very well was feinting. Both guys did this for most of the fight. However, like I said before, I think Till tends to feint too much. And by feinting so much and not throwing enough, he's not landing significant strikes. You know what I mean? He's not landing enough significant strikes to you need those to win. Especially if your opponent is landing leg kicks and, he's getting his combinations in there as well and landing some elbows. So, in my opinion, I think Till not throwing enough is what lost him this fight. Because if I'm being honest, it's not like Whittaker was just so dominant that Till couldn't throw anything effective. That was not the case at all. What I saw was a very skilled fighter not pulling the trigger, not firing off the shots that he knows he can throw. The shots that have knocked out guys in other fights, So I think Till was very hesitant. And, he's usually the hesitant fighter, but I think he was more hesitant than usual in this fight. And I think Whittaker realized that pretty early in the fight and took advantage of it. He was smartly just outpointing Till. He was point fighting. And, by doing that, he kind of made his way to a solid victory over a really super tough guy. So, it is what it is. It wasn't the greatest fight. It was a very technical fight. It was very, very high-level MMA. But it wasn't the most exciting because there were some rounds where barely anything was thrown. But again, Whittaker threw just enough and more than Till to win those rounds. So those small adjustments that Whittaker made was more than enough to get him those rounds and ultimately won in the fight. So I want to congratulate Bobby Knuckles on the win, and hopefully he gets back in there. Hopefully he gets what he wanted, which is fighting for that title again. That's the ultimate goal, especially when you were the champion. When you're the champion and you get knocked out and your belt gets taken away, your only goal is to fight, either get that rematch or work your way back up to that title again. So, again, big congratulations to Robert Whittaker for the victory. And this will put him again, I don't know if it's immediate, but he's one step closer to the title. And as for Till, he needs to figure out some stuff, man. he's got to see what his next move is. He's still ranked in the top 5 and will surely fight a top contender next, but he's got to figure it out. He's got to figure out, again, like I said before, you got to watch tape. You have to see what you did wrong, and in my opinion, he was too hesitant. He didn't throw enough. He didn't use although he did throw a lot of leg kicks, they were not as effective as Whittaker's leg kicks. So maybe he needs to incorporate more kicks. He threw a lot of head kicks. None of them landed. They were all blocked. Maybe he needs to incorporate, throwing those head kicks, but then maybe feinting the head kick and then maybe going for a body kick. Those are very effective. Maybe he needs to work on throwing more overall output. I think that if he throws more output, I personally think he hits harder than Whittaker. That's just my opinion. I don't know that for fact, but that's what I think. And I think that if he would have landed some of those 1-2 combinations that he was throwing, I think that he probably could have finished Whittaker. But again, if you don't throw them, you can't land them. So, it is what it is. It's just one of those things where you learn from a loss. And this, I believe, is going to be his 3rd loss. So, congratulations to Robert Whittaker. I just think being a very high level, very technical fight that it was, if you lose it, it doesn't really help you, But again, he will learn from this, and he will move on. Like I said, Whittaker's probably one step closer to the title. And Till is just, he's going to have to figure it out, what his next moves are and what he's going to have to do to ultimately get to his goal, which is to fight for the middleweight title. But yeah, so next Saturday, August 1st, we have a fight the fight card. Main event is Derek Brunson against Edmund Shabazian. That is the middleweight bout. This is not a great card on paper, and I know in the beginning of this podcast I said that I got to stop doing that. There's some good names in here. Edmund Shabazian is a pretty big beast. Derek Brunson, he's a knockout artist. You have Joanne Calderwood on this card. You have Vicente Luque on this card. You have Bobby Green on the card. You have Lando Venata on the card. But it's not the greatest on paper. Ray Borg's on it. If you know Frankie Science, he's on it. Ed Herman. Mearshardt's on it. There's some good guys. There's some good quality guys. But there's no big names. There's no, names that stand out to the average casual fan. But I'll watch, as I always do. So, again, I want to say, if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you haven't already, check out my YouTube channel. I upload videos every week. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe, like, and share with your friends. And then let me know in the comments. Again, if you're on YouTube, let me know in the comments who you think will get the W between Adesanya and Costa. Again, I'm really pumped about that fight. Who do you think is going to get the title? Will it be Ann New or will it be Ann Still? So let me know about that in the comments. Let me know if you think that Whittaker will get the next shot against the winner of Adesanya and Costa. And anything that you believe that will make this podcast better. Anything. I will take criticism. I will take suggestions. Anything that you think will help me grow or help me make this podcast better. I want to hear from you guys, so let me know. And then also, I just want to say thank you to everybody who is listening, everyone who's been with me since the beginning, all the new listeners. I just want to thank everybody for their support. And big thanks to all you guys. And as always, I am Juan, and this is your Average Fight Fan. Good night.
Your Average Fight